Welcome to Level Up Tribes. Level Up Tribes provides resources to help you attain the necessary resources to level up your mind, body, and soul and realize your full potential. It is about exploring, learning, providing you with the tools from the experts for you to create a better version of yourself. I am your host, Agnes Goodwine, and welcome, Tribes. Paula, thank you for, coming onto the show, and welcome to Level Up Tribes podcast. Paula Henderson, you are the owner and CEO of FAB50 LLC. You're a personal fitness strategist, motivational coach and speaker. You're a personal travel advisor, and I love watching all of your travel posts that you post on the Facebook. And I'm like, I want to go there. I want to go there. You're also a wife, a mother, a grandmother of 4, wow, and a breast cancer survivor. And your dedication to helping women walk into their next season of life and empowering them with their self-confidence and health is what actually attracted me to you. And so I wanted you to come to the show just to talk about, your business, your journey. If you can start with your story and how, in your background and what inspired you to create FAB50 Focus.
Okay, well, it's a little bit on and off. What really made me create FAB50 Focus initially was I was born and raised in the South, in a small town, pretty small town in Mississippi, the second of 4 children to a single mother. And, being born and raised in the South, during that time, I was born in 1965, headed into 55 this year. But during that time in the South, at least in my area where I was from and in my home, nutrition was not, we didn't think about nutrition. We ate a lot of fried foods. No exercise was, ever promoted. Even doctor visits, unless we were really, really sick, we didn't really do those things. So fitness was not something that I was raised with, although obesity was in my family. High blood pressure was in my family. Diabetes is in my family. Heart attack, strokes, heart disease, you name it. My genealogy has it. So I've always been, for myself, cognizant of, of my weight. Although I've never been what you consider by the charts would consider obese. But for me, at 5, a little bit over 5'2", anything over a certain weight, bothered me. So that was when I was growing up. So as I got older, I had, I think at 35, I said, I think my metabolism just died. It said, I'm out of here. I'm gone. Also at 35, I had to have an emergency hysterectomy, which didn't help. So, I really began to then pay attention to what was going on, how I dealt with stress, how my body was reacting, because at the time I thought I was really healthy. I had watched what I ate and things. I was running 20 miles a day. Ironically, I was living in Phoenix.
Oh, wow.
And, but I was also going through a divorce. And I also was getting ready to lose my job in corporate America. So where I thought I was doing great in handling stuff, my body basically shut down on me and said, we're not okay. We're not okay. We're not handling things well. So that was kind of the first time I really began to take a look at it. And then over the years, okay, this is going to be very vain, but this is how FAB50 started. At about 46, I was like, I'm headed into 50, almost 50. And ironically, in the African American community, everyone that I knew and I saw, from high school, other realms that were approaching 50, is as if we accepted that as we got older, that it was okay. We didn't have to be healthy. It was expected that we would gain a lot of weight. And I was like, no. So initially, I was just really vain. I was like, I'm going to be 50. I'm going to be on the beach in Maui. I'm going to have a 2-piece bikini, and I am not going to look like a grandmother. So it was a very vain goal. But what it did, it helped me focus. It helped me focus in on paying attention to, at that time, it was just my physical fitness. Okay. And, I didn't do it properly. I tried every fad diet. Yes. You named it. You told me it would make me lose weight. I did it. I tried it. But then as I got older, each year I began to think about, okay, now you've done this, so what? How are you going to maintain all this
Right.
work you put in over the year? So then I started to really look at my nutrition. I started to look at what I was putting into my body. I started to look at how my body reacted to certain things, because I didn't just bounce back. I couldn't just eat anything and bounce back. So I
Yes.
began to, over the next year, look at what I was actually eating. Then, which is when I actually started FAB50 Focus. I started FAB50 Focus at 51.
Okay.
When I was 51, I mean, the mindset had always been there. It had always been in my thought, but I'd never birthed it.
Yes.
So I started it that way, and then just over the years, over the last couple of years, past that, so 52 and 53, God just began to. It's like He was peeling back layers off me. So I
Mm.
went from, you know, thinking about being fabulous at 50 to looking at being fit at 51, and getting more internally looking at it at, at 52. I think it was fierce at 52. So I started to really look at how my body reacted to things, and how was I dealing with stress and stuff. So I
Right.
just eventually began to really start looking deeper and deeper. And then, I had always developed a strategic fitness plan. And although I was spiritual, I looked at spiritual goals, I looked at emotional goals, and I looked at fitness goals, which included my diet and my exercise. And so I knew also what driving force for me was my grandchildren. I had two at the
Okay.
time, three, but I had lost my mother at
Mm.
65, my grandmother at 65, and my oldest sister at 44. And they were due
Wow.
to strokes and heart disease. And I lost my mother and my oldest sister in the same year,
Oh
one in
my
June and one in
goodness.
November. So I was determined that's not going to be me. That's not going to
Right.
be, I can't stop my genealogy, but I can slow it down. I can do what I can to
Right.
be healthy. So I was determined I'm going to be around for my grandchildren. I'm going to be here to make memories with them and see them grow
Yes.
up and get married. So it's kind of a long story. So then at that's how I started FAB50 Focus, and I just began to peel away. And then by 54, almost 54, after 53, I began to really pay attention to my spiritual fitness, because what I
Mm.
realized was I had those three components, but
Yes.
I kept bouncing and yo-yoing on diets and even in how I dealt with stress, because I hadn't taken the time to really focus in and make sure my spiritual health was
Right.
fit. I was spiritually fit. I was aligned to my deity, and that was my foundation. So it's like
Right.
I began to work on these other two components, and God was slowly showing me, I need you to really hone in on your spiritual fitness. That's your foundation. That's what's
Ooh.
going to keep you from bouncing back and forth when you go to look at, what's happening in life and, your physical fitness. So I stopped
Right.
worrying about, how I looked.
Yes.
I stopped scaling. I stopped doing fad diets. I paid attention, but
Okay.
that wasn't my driving force anymore. So
Okay.
that's kind of how it started.
What kept you consistent? To say to other ladies that are out there listening, when we hit that point where we're about to give up, what was it for you?
I think the point for me when I was about to give up is I was just tired,
Okay.
and there had been some things happening in my life at that time. I was about 53, and I had met my now husband, and I just wanted to be joyous. I wanted to be happy. I was living in the state of Washington, and I was like, I'm tired of bouncing back and forth. I'm
Yeah.
tired of, I was getting older, and I don't know if it was anything that was happening, but the Lord was just showing me that all I've been through, He's brought me through, and I need to now. I had gone from religious to spiritual, and that was a journey in and of itself. And so I began to realize that whenever I really connected with God, I stayed constant,
Mm.
constant in my thought process, constant in what I was doing, constant in my career. And so it was just like a light switch that turned on. It said,
Yeah.
Now you know when you bounce back and forth, you bounce back and forth when you're not truly connected with me. You
That's
bounce
it.
back and forth when you don't have me as the foundation of whatever you're doing. And you
Mm.
don't let me guide you and lead you in the path. When you look at everywhere else and all these different things, you bounce. Focus on me first, and I'll guide you through the other things.
Ooh, that's
And it was
beautiful.
that, yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you for saying that, because we do we start and then we don't finish it, and for myself, I'm good at doing that. But I wanted to go back to the culture and the influence that nutrition has on
Hmm.
people of color. And I lived in Georgia for 16 years, so I love my
Hmm.
macaroni and cheese and my collard greens and my
I still eat them.
sweet potatoes. I love all of that, but I'm trying to find a way where I can still enjoy that and it's still good for my nutrition. What's your diet like now? Like, do you still incorporate those things?
I still incorporate some things. I mean, I've been there. I've been, the gamut. I tried, just taking out everything, taking out the things that I like, and for me, it wasn't so much, I didn't eat a lot of pork and beef anyway. I stopped frying foods years when my children were
Mm,
teenagers. I,
okay.
even I was still bouncing back and forth, but I just stopped frying foods. So I have not been eating a lot of fried foods in my home for years before I did this. But what I wanted to do, what I realized is for me, if I just eliminated everything and try to go from my personality is it's black or white, I'm in, I'm out. You know, I do it or I don't. So I have a
Yeah.
problem with the middle ground. So, but what I had to realize was that for me, I had to gradually find what worked. So I would get, components of, a keto diet or components of, some other diet, and I would just pick and choose. So now I'm at a point where in my diet, I don't eliminate
Okay.
things. It's about moderation. Now, I do not eat meat since I have recovered from cancer, and since I'm a cancer survivor, I don't eat meat. That's the one thing I did remove from my diet. And there are some things that I eat sparingly. I still eat greens. I don't do the ham hocks and all the stuff with it. But I
Right.
still eat greens. I still eat mac and cheese, but it's homemade mac and cheese, so I know what's in it.
Okay.
We found some substitutes. So I think it's about just finding that balance. And for
Mm,
me, the balance was being aware of what I ate, limiting things, but not if I want something,
yeah.
I eat it. I just eat it in moderation. I
Okay.
just eat it in moderation. So that's worked for me. I mean, because I'm not a dietitian or a nutritionalist, and I get information, I get feedback from them,
Right.
and I read a lot.
Right.
And then I just decide what works for me and pay attention to how my body reacts when I eat some things. And then I stay away from it. I know with my cancer, soy is not good for me. So I
Mm,
read labels. I take soy out. I don't eat a lot of sodium, so I pay attention to the sodium in things.
okay.
I learned years ago to read labels, read the ingredients on things.
But you're right. Because isn't soy like it contains, correct me if I'm wrong, like a lot of estrogen? It
Yes.
raises the estrogen level up, and that's
Yes.
what kind of like causes sometimes the cancer from our breast
Depending on
cancer.
what type of cancer, breast cancer you had, I had estrogen positive, so I was estrogen receptacle was positive, which
Okay.
means that and I had started taking an estrogen patch a year before because
Why?
I was in premenopausal and I had started having hot night sweats, which I dealt with those, but then I started having a lot of hot flashes during the day, and they were interrupting my quality of life. I mean, I couldn't do anything. I was at work and, I would break out in sweats in meetings and couldn't wear silk. And I was just tired. So I said,
Mm,
I'll try it. And I would say to anyone, do something else before you do the
okay.
estrogen hormones or anything. I didn't look at the time at a more natural option.
Are there natural options out there that you know of now?
Yeah, there are natural options. There are herbs that you can take, and
Okay.
and here's why I mess up. I have to write things down because I
Yeah.
forget. I forget. But there are natural options, and I would tell people to look into. There's a Dr. CB. Have you heard of Dr. CB?
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people do Dr. CB, where you look at natural herbs and things like that. So I looked into those now because I'd had cysts before in my breast, but they
Mhm.
were never an issue. And I
Okay.
do believe, and my doctor believes that the estrogen that I took fed that.
That is
And yeah,
crazy.
yeah, because I had had a mammogram. I did a mammogram every year, and I had one the year before, right before we moved. We moved
Right.
in December from Washington, and I'd had one, and I had no problems. And I went into the doctor because I found a knot underneath my armpit, and it was bothering me.
Mm.
And I didn't think anything of it then.
I do want to say, because we are friends on Facebook and I followed your journey through this process, the way that you took this journey, like we say in Spanish, you took it by the cojones, but with a Christian spiritual twist. You know what I mean? You were grounded, and you spoke your videos. I watched your videos, and they were very inspiring, and you were very resilient and optimistic. What was the purpose of you putting your journey out there to the world?
Well, I wanted to put my journey out because God began to tell me, tell your story and
Mm,
help someone. There's a lot of women that are going through breast cancer. Now, when I started my journey, I didn't tell anyone.
okay.
Um, when I was diagnosed in November of 2018 with stage 3 breast cancer, I went in and I wasn't upset. When I got the call at work and they said, the doctor wants to talk to you about your results.
Yeah.
And I said, that's not, I said to myself, that's not good. I said, Lord, let's go. I
Mm,
trust you. So I went in, talked to the doctor, and, I just said, Lord, I trust you. And I said, okay, what do we need to do to attack this so I can live,
yeah.
with breast cancer? And for me, it was just a journey of faith.
Mm,
And, initially the Lord told me not to tell anyone. He says, I just want you to trust in me. So of course my husband knew.
yeah.
Um, and it was a holiday season, and I knew it was a hard time for my family because of, our loss of our mother and our sister. And I didn't want to burden anyone with, what was going on with me, and people have their own issues. So I had some things planned. I had my 35th class reunion I was going to, we were getting ready to look at doing in real estate. I was the fitness chair for a women's organization at the
Mm,
time. So I had a lot of things going on. I had just moved to Phoenix that year. We were building our home. We had, things going on with our family. So, it was like, wow, right in the middle of this, here we go.
right.
So I remember leaving my conference in here in Phoenix on a Sunday. I checked into the hospital that Monday for my port, and I started my chemo. I started my chemo December 5th, I believe it was.
Mm,
And no one knew, but I just knew that God had me because He had showed me the vision. He said, you always participate in the Susan G. Komen in Washington. He said, you will participate next year, and you would participate as a survivor. You'll walk for yourself. So He had showed me that. So I just trusted Him through the process. And going through, I finally told my sister and my daughter
okay.
uh, at after Christmas. And I think, but I've never been upset about it. It's part of my journey.
I
It's
know.
part of my purpose. I mean, it was
I
hard.
I
I mean,
love
there were
that.
there were
Oh, I'm
parts
sure it
that were
was.
hard. But,
Yeah.
God told me when I had my locks, I just started my locks.
Mm-hmm.
And I started chemo, and the first chemo I took, the AC, was really aggressive, and I started losing my locks. And I remember just sitting in my new home. We had just we had just signed, sitting in my new home, and I just started taking the locks out because if I ran my hand through them, they were starting to come out. So I
Mm,
said, I'm going to take them out. I'm going to take control. Cancer will not take my hair. I'll
mm,
decide when my hair leaves. And so I just
okay.
took my locks out. And but then I sat there and said, Lord, I'm scared to go to the mirror. And He said, go.
I
That you are
love it.
more than your hair. He said, you are more than your hair. Go. And I did. And I went back to our home, and my husband looked, and I said, now finish shaving the rest of it off. And it's hot in Phoenix, I was
It
like,
sure is.
I'm not doing a wig. I'm
Right.
going out just like this. I'm more than my hair. I'm still me. And,
Yeah.
I'm going to rock some big earrings and go. So that's what I did.
I love
But
it.
then after I finished my chemo, that's when my last day of chemo, which was in March of 2019, that's when the Lord said, now tell your story. And
Okay.
so that's when I did my video to tell the rest of the story that,
Yeah.
to say to everyone, yes, I have been diagnosed with cancer. I've been in chemo since December, and now I'm straight out of chemo and I'm ready to tell everyone
Yes.
this is what's happening,
Well, thank you
but
for
you can
sharing
make
your
it.
story. Yeah, it really does mean a lot. I mean, I've lost a few people from cancer. It's scary, just the word alone. It's a scary thought. But I do believe that mentally, what we say to ourselves
Absolutely.
speaks to ourselves internally. And so watching you with this optimistic attitude and just very strong presence, and it really stands out. It says a lot about your character.
Thank you.
I also wanted to talk to you about, the principles of FAB50,
Hmm.
which I believe it's three of them, right?
There's three principles and three concepts that FAB50 is founded on.
Yes.
Yeah.
You want to touch on that a little bit?
Sure. So FAB50 is it's a faith-based organization because everything runs through my faith. So principle number one with FAB50 states that we can do all things with Christ Jesus who strengthens us. So for me, it's Christ, but it's about that alignment. So principle number one, the concept is around spiritual fitness, spiritually being health. So whatever deity you have, being aligned to that deity and making sure that that relationship is healthy. So
Yeah.
once that relationship is healthy, you can do all things through your deity and through that higher power. And then principle number two talks about thou will keep me in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on him. So
Mm,
that means that where my mind goes, my body will follow.
mm,
So
mm,
that
mm.
talks about emotional fitness and emotional and mental fitness and health fitness. If you think it, that's what will happen. If your mind thinks that you can't do it, your body will say, I can't. So it's about emotional fitness and emotional health. So where your mind goes, your body will follow. And then principle number three, which is be strong in the Lord and the power of his might, because Jesus is in us. The Holy Spirit is in us. We are stronger than we know. So that speaks to the physical fitness, which includes your diet and exercise, but it talks about we're much stronger than we believe. We are much stronger than we give ourselves credit for. And a lot of times we're ready to tap out right at our breaking point, right at that point where we just go a little further, then we'll meet our goals. Now, and I say that, and I'm not a personal trainer. And if you have, like now I have physical limitations. So if you have a physical limitation, that's not a tap out. But when it's just because you are pushing yourself, we're stronger than we give ourselves credit for. We can do
Yes.
it. We can do it. If we
Yes.
can put our mind there, if we can believe that we can do it,
Yes.
if we can even ask for that help that says, I pray all the time. Sometimes even I'm working, I'm like, Lord, I can make it. I can
Yeah.
make it. And you break it down to little
Yeah.
bite-sized pieces, you can do it. So those are
Yes.
the three principles and concepts that FAB50 is founded on: spiritual health and fitness, physical, emotional health and fitness, and then your physical health and fitness, which includes your diet and your exercise.
Yes. Offline, you told me that you used to run what, 20 miles? Was it 20 miles a
Yes.
day?
I used to run
Amazing.
20 miles a day.
Amazing. And so I just started running like, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago. When I hit my first 1 mile, it might not sound like a lot. I started feeling like this little tingling in my throat, and mine was like, nope, you can't do it. But it's that moment that you were just
It's that
talking
moment.
about where you say, no, just do 5 more minutes or do 1 minute.
Right.
And you're absolutely 100% right. It's that moment where you extend it. And I actually finished a 5K last year. Yeah. But it's that mindset. It goes back to that mindset and that belief that
Mindset.
you can do it, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, I used to run marathons, and I will run a marathon again.
Okay.
But when I ran marathons, and even when I'm running, when I get to that wall where my mind says I can't. For me, if I go out and I want to run 20 miles, I don't take the whole 20. I break it up. And
Okay.
even as I'm running and you get that one, so I'm so tired, I pick out, because I'm a visual person, I pick out a spot and I'm saying, okay, I'm gonna run to that sign. And then when I get to that sign, I'm like, okay, you can run to that next sign. So
Yeah.
you just keep going. And then if you will get into, then your mind will go into, I got this, I can do this. And you'll find yourself just going. You don't have to pick out those points. But when you need to do it again,
Yes.
you say, I got it, I can do it. And
Yes.
if you need to stop, stop for a minute and then say, I
Right.
got it. But see, I run and then I get so far from home and it's like, I got to get back.
Oh my God. When you start running, I mean, if you ever do like a running club, I'm there. I'm in that club. If you ever, I'm just throwing that idea out.
I'm working on getting back out there. I will
Okay.
run again.
So, Paula, what is your message that you like to give women in the community?
In the future, what I want to do is do more, just bring all of my FAB50 focus, which is really about, being healthy from the inside out, and
Okay.
those connections, those spiritual connections, and then your own intrinsic, inspiration and what you want to do. And then bring that into, what I call living my best life, because, I love to travel. I love to travel. So travel is a passion for me. And so and being healthy, then I can really truly, be able to live my best life. And people have to figure out what that is for them. And then finally, just sharing my journey, sharing the process that God brought me through. There's a whole nother story before I even got to FAB50 Focus and
Yeah.
my cancer, but just sharing with women, that you can
Do
do
you
it.
want to share that story or?
I do want to share that story, and I've started writing some of it.
Okay.
Um, so I do want to share that entire story, but if I can help just one woman that's going through cancer,
Yeah.
breast cancer, know that they can make it, here's the other side, you
Right.
can get through it, or to help, some woman know that life is going to happen, even in this pandemic. Even with this pandemic, life is still going to happen. So how are we dealing with life in spite
Yeah.
of that? And what are some tools and some things that we can pull out our toolbox to help us deal with
Yeah.
what's happening in our life, and to see the other side, because God tells us that all things, all things work for the good.
Right.
We don't see it, but it does. So if I can help any woman be able to just look at those principles, those concepts, develop a plan for themselves to deal with things, then that's golden. And then
Right.
for African American women to be able to look at their nutrition and their
Yes.
diet,
Yes.
even at a foundational level, you
Yes.
know, to be able to deal with what's in our genealogy and in our
Right.
culture,
Right.
not to lose our culture, because I'll
Yeah.
never lose
Absolutely.
that, but we want to be healthy, and we want to develop, traditions and things that we can pass on to our
Yes.
children. That's my goal.
Being a woman of color myself, sometimes life hits us a little different. Domestic violence. So, with all of that, our surroundings and our root, we kind of take in that internally sometimes, and we have self sabotage ourselves
Mhm.
because we're still holding our younger self inside is still holding on to that hurt and that pain. So, we self sabotage ourselves by eating more than we should, or the lack of exercise, or
Mhm.
what we tell ourselves mentally. And so I always believe, through my own journey of healing, is finding out the root cause of all of that pain and anger
Mhm.
and resentment that we have. And once we get to the root of that,
Right.
You
You're
don't get.
absolutely correct. And I still deal with image issues for myself, and I have to constantly remind myself, and I do affirmations, and,
Yeah.
I have to remind myself that, I'm beautiful from
Yes.
the inside out. And
Yeah.
don't compare myself to others, but because of, some things that happened when I was growing up, because I was skinny. I have obesity in my family, but I was a stick with boobs. I was. And so, but that image, and what, some things that as a result of that I dealt with, have lived with me all of this time. And so I have always had self-image issues. And I think I grew up with a fear of being obese because of
Mm,
my family history,
yes.
and saw what some of the things that they dealt with through
Yeah.
that. So, I had it on both sides, but you are
Yes.
absolutely correct. We have to deal with what the hurt, where it stems from, and
Yes.
what stops us from truly loving ourselves and seeing the self that God
Mm,
created, before we can then move into our purpose, because
yes.
He created us in His image, and His
Yes.
image is glorious.
Yes, there's so much to be done, and I think Phoenix is the right place to have those women empowerment circles that we can get together and talk about those things,
Yeah.
so we can heal each other. I think the more you tell your story, you start breaking, you mentioned layers earlier, you start breaking away those
Hmm.
layers, and the easier that story becomes, vocally and mentally.
I just want to share my journey with women, and let them know you have a journey, but you have to tap into that spiritual piece. You got to align first, and then you'll realize that you'll begin to see, as He peel back those layers, you can see things that happened, 10 years ago,
Yeah.
and how that brought you to a certain point, and how that plays into your life and your journey and your purpose now, that you couldn't see. It wasn't
Yes.
time for Him to reveal it to you.
Yes.
And so, uh, I just love being able to see women be able to see where they were at a point where they didn't think they could make it, and when I
Yes.
talk to women about breast cancer and whatever they're going through, and I said, just start with one step.
Yeah.
When I open my eyes every day, the first thing I say is, Lord, thank you.
Mm,
It doesn't matter what happens today. Thank
right.
you for this day. And
Yeah.
then, if I can't make it or think I can't make it, I just stop and say, Lord, thank you.
Yeah.
Or you take control.
Have you always had that um, Christian foundation? Like even from being in Mississippi, you always had that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We had that foundation. We went to church. We learned and grew up in church, and knew about God and the faith. And I watched my grandmother. She was a little lady, but she was powerful, and she had her faith, and she kept the family. She kept the family going regardless of what happened. And I saw when she passed away how our family just kind of, that glue. She
Yeah.
was the glue, and the family just started going in different directions.
Yeah.
But everyone, I always had that faith. Now God had to take me through some things to, the word says, train a child in the way they should go, and when they old, they won't depart.
Mm,
And you may go out and do some things, and you got to find yourself, but you still have that core, where
yes.
things eat at you because it's going against what is right,
Right.
and then when you get into situations, that's where you go back to. You
Yeah.
go back to that foundation of faith, that foundation of hope, that foundation of God. And so I've always had that. And yeah, and He took me through, like I said, He took me through some things. I raised my kids like that, but He had to take me from religious
Mm,
to spiritual. I
mm,
was religious at one point in my life, where I was in the church every day, and I did things in the church, and I grew my children up in the church, but I wasn't spiritual.
what do you think is the difference between the two? Secondly, when you merge both of them, what do you think? What enhance?
When I think religious,
Yeah.
so religious to me is a certain denomination.
Yeah.
Religious to me is more about the church in the building.
Yeah.
Um, and religious to me is more about those activities that we just kind of conditioned
Yeah.
that, I'll say I was conditioned to do.
Yes.
So when I think of spiritual, when I got spiritual, because when I went from religious, I was in church every day and took our kids to church every day, and we participated in the church, and it was all about, being a Baptist in the church.
Mm.
And so when I became spiritual, is after I fell out with God, actually, because I had been that Christian wife, mother, woman, and still I was divorced. Had lost my job. I was sick, and I lost everything. That's a different story, but I lost everything, and I was angry with
Mm.
God. But it took that for me to get to a place where He showed me it's not about the church, it's not about the religion. I need you to come to me. I
Mm.
need you to worship with me,
Yeah.
talk to me, and know that I am. I am your way. I'm the one that's going to bring you out. It's not going to be a job. It's not going to be a person. It's not going to be the church. It's me. So I need you to connect with me mentally, spiritually, in your soul. So then I went from where I still love church. I still believe in church, but the church is a building.
Yeah.
Like now in the pandemic, you can still worship God.
Yes.
The church you're the church, your
Yes.
soul. That's where the church is in your soul. And
Mm.
so when I bring the two together, it's like I still love to fellowship. I still love to have that connection with my I'll say my church family, but when I say my church family, it's not a specific church. It's not a specific denomination. It's believers.
Yeah.
That's my church family, it's believers. So when I marry the two of being spiritual, I recognize that my faith and my hope comes from God. Everything I need comes from God. The vehicle may be a job that He's given me, but
Mm.
He's providing that vehicle. So that's when I married the two.
I love
So
it.
when I married the two and put them together, that's when I began to look at life, my life, differently, and how I approach things and how I deal with
Yes.
with change and what happens in my life.
Yes.
Now, I don't know if I answered your second
You
question because
did. You did.
I tend to go off on a tangent.
No, you answer both so beautifully. Like you said, when you marry the two, I think that's when you find purpose, when you see the vision of what life is all about. And it all is inside of us, you know?
It's inside of us.
Yeah, it's inside of
And
we're
for me, it's more important for me to be able to not to recite a verse in the Bible by chapter and verse and be able to repeat that.
yeah,
It's more important to me, or even in any business. I'm not a person that quotes a lot of things. It's more important for me to be able to take the meaning and be able to apply it to my
yes,
life and
yes,
understand how that will manifest itself in
yes,
my life if I'm walking that, if I
yes,
am living that way. That's more
yeah,
important to me.
yeah.
That that's more important to me.
Well, thank you. I wanted to touch on your travel. How did you get into that?
I always loved to travel.
Yeah.
So, I think I told you me and my husband had started traveling. He's a golfer, so when we were in Washington, we would
Okay.
travel, and I needed sunshine. So we started going places when it started raining to travel and just enjoy life and start living life and seeing other things. I've always wanted to travel because I came from a small town. I always knew that there had to be something else. I mean, the
Yeah.
furthest I had gone was uh, not that far. So I started traveling. So traveling has always been a passion of mine. So I had looked at the travel industry before, but
Mm,
you always say I don't have time, or you don't want to jump out there and you don't want to do it. But after going through my cancer diagnosis and my treatments, I decided, Lord, you only get one life
yeah.
and I am going to enjoy my life. And so the opportunity had been brought to me once before, and I was afraid. I was like, I don't know anything, and people are not going to, do this. But then I was like, you know what? You're going to do this because you love to travel. Travel is
Yeah.
your passion, And you can marry it, you talk about being healthy and to be able to live your best life. And I live my best life through travel. So,
I
I
do
wanted
too.
to then be able to, one, help other people have good experiences with travel. And even in talking to some of my friends about how they travel and how you even plan to travel is futuristic. And so
Right.
when I started, I looked for a company that aligned with my foundation.
Okay.
It's not about just doing things to take people's money. I don't want to do that. I am looking to help people, one, enjoy their life, and those that do that through travel, and then the opportunity that someone that is passionate about travel can start their own travel company.
Yeah.
And with this company, I'm looking at breaking my generational financial mindset around
Yes.
scarcity and look
Yes.
at abundance.
Whew.
Have a mindset of abundance and being able to leave something for my children's children. Well, my children are going to get, whatever life insurance, my children's
Yeah.
children, which are my wives, but leaving them a legacy and something that's meaningful, that's going to pay them if they don't do anything else.
Yes.
If so, because I love travel, that was just a natural fit for me. That was a natural
Okay.
fit for me.
So anyone can come to you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. They can come to, they can even go to my website, which is paulahenderson.intellitravel.com. Like they go to any other
Okay.
third-party website and they can look up things, or they can give me a call. If they want to put a package together, I'll see what's the best option for them, provide them a couple different options. Right now with the pandemic, I
Yeah.
research and find out what are the restrictions that are happening, and help people be aware before they
Right.
make that commitment. And then, so I really talk about what are they looking for, because
Okay.
I was upset because I had planned to go to Europe, for my
Yeah, I
55th
saw
birthday.
that.
Oh yeah, we were
You were
right there.
ready.
Oh yeah, 55, but it's okay. I'll get there. I'll
Yeah,
I'll go back. I'll go. It's just that just means it's not time for me to go.
that's true.
Yeah, it wasn't the time for
That's
me to
true.
go there. But
Have you been there
yeah,
before to
I've
Europe?
I've never been to Paris. I've
Yeah,
been
I
to
know.
Europe, some parts of Europe when, my husband was in the military, just briefly, but I wanted to go to Paris.
Yeah.
That was it. 55. I was going to spend my birthday at the Eiffel Tower. I had it all. It was all planned. It was.
We just have to throw out 2020 calendars out the window because
But you know what? 2020, and I had thought about, throwing about 2020 calendars, but as I
yeah,
look at 2020, 2020 is shifting. 2020 was designed, I believe,
yeah,
to shift us, to shift everything, to shift us personally, to
yeah,
shift us socially, to shift our world, to
yes.
shift, the shift that's happening in 2020. I am embracing 2020 and I love 2020 right now. I didn't a
Okay.
couple of months ago,
Yeah, I didn't
because
either.
and God had to say to me, okay, I'm going on a tangent. I gave you the
No, go ahead.
opportunity. I gave everyone the opportunity to make a shift.
Mm,
And so we didn't do it. And this is just my thought process. We didn't do it. So when he allowed this pandemic to happen, what did we have to do? We had to move away from being so busy with
mm,
work. We had to move away from being so busy with our entertainment and our sports and everything else we did. And we had to go back to a foundation of, one, connecting and reconnecting as with our families. We
yes,
had to begin to reconnect with, from a cultural perspective and even a race perspective.
yeah,
So he's allowed us to take this opportunity to say, you were so busy. I'm going to give you an opportunity to not be busy.
mm,
Give you an opportunity to see what you need to do for yourself, how you need to look internally at yourself,
mm,
how you need to change and look at how your families, the relationship of your family. And there are some sad things happening, but I think those are going to be pivotal points that's going to allow our world and our culture to, our various cultures to begin to integrate, and then we can move the needle.
Yeah.
And it's gonna take time.
Right.
And I just see where, I see people of all cultures and a lot of the young, especially the younger generation, saying, it's not okay.
Right.
I'm standing with, this is my sister, this is my brother.
Right.
And they're beginning to look at what can we do to create long-term sustainable change.
Yes.
And
With self.
it starts within, it starts with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
So,
2020 has, someone said, you want to take, I'm loading up a bus and I'm going back to 2019. I'm like, well, 2019 was no walk in the park for me. So I don't know if I want to go back to 2019. I think I'm going to stay right here and hang out, and God's it's going to be okay. We're
yeah.
going to make it.
That's true. I agree with you. I think it was a reset. I think with COVID coming into play and having everyone inside their homes and looking internally, I think with what happened with the police and the Black Lives Matter movement would not have been seen in the light that it has if we wasn't in the house for
Weren't
2 months. You know what I
I
mean?
believe that. I believe
Yeah.
that we've had things that we've had things happen in the past, and we've had the Black Lives Matter movement, and it did not take the same meaning and that it's taking now. And I do believe it's because of the pandemic and the shift, and everyone
Yes.
was inside for a while, and we had an opportunity to look internally a little
Right.
bit. I believe that.
Well, I cannot wait to see what's next for you in the horizon. I think that you're an amazing woman. I think you have a lot to give to the world, especially here in Phoenix. Yeah, if is there anything else you would like to talk about that perhaps we didn't touch on today?
No, I just think that even as a woman of color in fighting breast cancer,
Yeah.
there are a lot of resources that I don't know that we always know about.
Mm,
And even in those resources, even though I chose to be bald, I still looked for even a simple thing as looking for a wig, in case I wanted to put one on to go somewhere. And there are a lot of resources, but I didn't find a lot for me.
yeah.
And something that simple, it was like, wow. So,
Right.
and there are a lot of women that are going through and that are African American women and women of color that are fighting this, and you can't find even a wig that represents you,
Yeah. Well,
that you're
you know what,
comfortable in.
Paula? It sounds like that's a business for you, huh?
Oh God,
That's I don't know.
I don't know, Lord, about that business. I don't know. But it's a need. It's a need,
Yeah.
and for me, I like women to empower each other, and we have to continue to, as women of color, to lift each other up.
Yeah.
We can all be successful. We can all be empowered. We
Right.
can all help each other. It's not a or, it's a and.
Yes.
It's a and. It's like
Yes.
inspiration and motivation. It's not a or, it's a and.
Yes, absolutely. Paula, what is the best way for our listeners to contact you about, your fitness journey, if they want to go ahead and get some tips from you, if they want
Hmm.
to reach out to you because of the travel? I'm pretty sure travel in 2021 is going to be crazy. So I think this is the best time to book anything that you want to do next year,
It
right?
is. It is. There are some phenomenal packages and deals out there right now.
Yeah.
And I tell everyone from a travel perspective, I personally, tell people that are booking now to book later in the year just because of everything that's going on and into next year. But
Hmm.
there are some phenomenal packages. So if anyone wants to talk to me about, FAB50 Focus, or they can contact me at FAB50Focus at gmail.com. I also have a website that I have to do some more things too, but I have a website, and that's just www.fab50focus.com. They can always find me on Facebook. I have a Facebook group for
Yes.
FAB50 Focus and also FAB50 Travel. So FAB50 Travel is FAB50 LYBL Travel, which stands for Live Your Best Life Travel at gmail.com. And then I also have a Facebook group for FAB50 Travel also. So
Wonderful.
either way, they can contact me and I'll be glad to talk to them about if they want to develop a strategic fitness plan for themselves or just have the conversation.
Yeah.
Um, Anything. And if someone wants to have a dialogue, if they have a group they'd like me to come talk with, they
Okay.
can reach me. Actually, they can contact me on either one of those, and I will respond.
Okay.
And because I really want to do more workshops, more group chats, and help women and have that dialogue there.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, or they can
Wonderful.
just find me on Facebook, Paula Williams Henderson, and we'll go from there. I'm
Yes.
I'm pretty easy to to get to.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for coming on to Level Up Tribe podcast show and sharing
Thank you
your
for asking
story.
me.
And I learned so much about you. Yeah, definitely stay in touch.
I will. I will. Thank you so much for inviting me onto your podcast and being able to share my story. And hopefully it helps just one.
Yes. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you for listening. Please visit the website at www.leveluptribes.com. And please subscribe to the podcast and share with your family and friends. Be sure to tune in to our next episode. Catch you all next time, my beloved tribes.